Welcome to the T2 Hubcast. Join Martin, Dave, Spencer and guests as they discuss all things personal and professional development. The T2 Hubcast, brought to you by the People Performance People.
So welcome to another T2 Hubcast with me, Martin Johnson, and
me, Steve Judge.
Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So as the T2 Hub listeners know, we record many podcasts, Steve, on all sorts of topics from leadership, performance psychology, sales, management, whatever it might be. And we try to give practical advice and tips for people on the move, on the go to implement in their everyday. But every now and then we love to get a special guest in from all walks of life. We've had sportsmen and women, we've had the military guys, we've had coaches, we've had all sorts of stuff, business leaders. But today, you were speaking in Hull earlier today.
Yeah, at the Business Culture.
At the Business Culture Hull. And you were a guest speaker for me at T2 Talks back in
November, was it?
November.
Yeah, I loved it.
Great memory. I can't even remember when our events are. And you went down like a house on fire. I mean, you were just phenomenal. And I've got to say, and I will say it, probably one of the best speakers I've witnessed in a live forum. And I've seen a lot and I've worked with a lot.
Great.
And therefore, I wouldn't hesitate, as I have done, in recommending you elsewhere. However, what I wanted to get you on for today, Steve, is to just chew the fat or pick your brains on a few things. Mm-hmm. Mindset, one of the things that you radiate, I believe, is a positive outlook on life.
Yeah, positivity.
You are one of those people where when you spend 10 minutes in your company, you leave somehow feeling better about yourself and the situation.
Yeah.
And I mean that sincerely.
Thank you.
And you leave an impression, and you make an impression on people, which I don't think can be taught sometimes. I don't know if you're conscious of the way you're doing it.
I'm quite ignorant to a lot of this. I know people tell me that I'm positive, and they just after speaking to me, they feel better within themselves, more positive, more get up and go. And I think, that's great. And it's a lovely compliment, but I don't really know what I've done apart from just spoken what we were talking about in the way that I do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And therefore, that's the endearing thing, because it is an unconscious thing. So let's just give, for people who don't know who you are, Steve, because there will be some people who don't know who you are, right?
Are you sure? Some people out there. Okay, fair enough.
So Steve, I'll do a little intro and then I'll let you do it, because you can do it far better than I can. But Steve is a 2-time para-triathlete world champion.
Correct.
Is that correct? I always struggle to get that in as a mouthful, but it is.
I know.
And you are that, but you're much more than that, and have been much more than that. But that's sort of where a lot of your talks sort of build up to. Yeah. But prior to that, you experienced a level of adversity that would probably be enough to cripple most human beings, and it could dramatically change your life in a way where you could easily get caught up in feeling sorry for yourself, staying at home, not working, whatever it might be. But you've come out of that, and now you do what you do, which is wonderful. So do you want to add a little bit more to that? What happened to you in a synopsis, and what has it led to in your life? What do you do now?
Okay. So adversity happened to me, and I think everybody has adversity in their life, and no one should ever compare their adversity or what's happened to other people. So this is what happened to me. Was 2002. I had a near fatal car accident. I skidded off the road. It wasn't anybody's fault. It was just a bad accident. I got both my legs crushed. I got taken to the nearest hospital, which is in Sheffield. They saved my life. I forget about that bit sometimes. I always talk about my legs. My legs were crushed, and I've just written my book, which I'll probably mention loads, but that's only because it's reminded me of the story. As I went into the operating theatre, they went to save my legs, but they also went to save my life. They didn't know whether I was going to come out the other end. I did, clearly, because I'm on the radio podcast. But 8 hours later, came out. They said, look, we fixed your legs. Job done. However, because of the severity of the injuries, you may never walk again. And that's the turning point. That's a massive turning point in my life there, where it was pretty much a fight or flight. The flight being just roll over in bed and give in and say, I guess I'll never walk. And the opposite being the fight. I remember being really angry that somebody had the audacity to say that to me. They didn't even know me, and they were telling me that I may never walk. I looked down, I had 2 legs. They were messed up, but I just thought, kind of like, bring it on. What do I need to do to get better? What do I need to do to get my right leg? I had to grow back, had a massive metal cage around it, had to grow it back, had to do so much physio, rehabilitation. And all the time, it was very much, I remember one point with the physio, I was doing like 22 different exercises to get better. And I just said, is there anything else I can do? What more can I do? What more can I do? What more can I do? I want to get better. These are my legs. I want to get out of this hospital and go home. When I was at home, when I got discharged, nobody was looking over me really. I was doing the physio myself. Yeah, my fiance at the time was there as she went off to work. The physios I met up with every week. But in those 7 days, there was just me alone at home, and I did the physio.
So let me ask you a question on that, Steve, because that's a sort of amazing drive almost from the outset to get back on your feet literally and start recovering. Now, here's my first question for you then. Was you always like that, right? Or did the accident and the adversity trigger something in you that wasn't there before? Or have you always been that type of person in life who you get up, you get on with it, you be resilient, and you always focus on what you want to achieve? Or did that change you, that accident?
Okay, I think that it was definitely inside me, this get up and go. I talk about scouting a lot in my journey, and how as a scout I used to be the scout that took the badge book home and flick through it and looking for the next badge that I wanted, and then I'd ask for help to work towards it, and I'd get that badge and put it on my arm. I was very proud of it. So yeah, I was setting goals then, and I was working towards them, and I loved that. But then on the other side, at school, in work, no, not really.
What was your career, Steve, before the accident? What did you do for a living? Because obviously you're a motivational speaker now.
Yeah.
But what did you do before the accident?
So I left school. I worked down the pit as a maintenance fitter. Then after that, I worked in the laboratory doing quality checking. And then before the accident, then that was before the accident. So that was it. So I was working in the laboratory, just quality checking. So not very aspirational.
I can't imagine you doing that. You are larger than life. You love people. You love engaging with people. So I could just have this. I have this picture of you now, Steve, in a laboratory in a white outfit with gloves on, checking stuff. Yeah. And it just doesn't seem like you.
Very, very solemn. I think the stranger comparison was before I became a motivational speaker. I was. This is while I was elite athlete. I worked in health and safety in construction. So I did that for 9 years. Now, I was one of the most hated people there because, I would have to go and do these site audits and to go and check the health and safety, make sure everybody's safe, doing things correctly. And so to go onto a construction site, if I told them I was coming, they would prepare. So I had to do it all cloak and dagger. So I couldn't tell anybody in the office I was going. I couldn't tell anybody on site that I was going to come there. I had to arrive there, find my own way there, try to get onto the site to make sure that it was secure. When I got onto the site, they looked at me, their eyes rolled, and they went, "Hey, Steve." And that was it. And Steve's here. Oh, flipping heck, Steve's here. And then I was very polite and walked around. And every time I went to these construction sites, there always seemed to be a tea break that was going on. So I could walk around the whole site. There'd be nobody working. Well, whose drill is this? Don't know. Okay. Well, whose machine is this? Don't know. So whose frayed cable is this? Don't know. Just nobody was there. And so I got everybody, I did the audit. And the other thing you have to do is toolbox talks. So you gather everybody in a group and you literally spend 10 minutes patronizing them on how to do their job, which they don't really like. It's kind of teaching them how to suck eggs.
You know what, Steve? You look at the laboratory job and you look at construction, health and safety. They are the two most unlikely jobs I would ever put you in. You are larger than life, and you have a sort of I was going to use the word enigma, right?
Okay.
But you're totally the polar opposite of the working class man on the building site, right?
I am. Yeah.
So I can only imagine you pitching up as health and safety and the absolute stick you used to get on them sites. Yeah. So let me just fast forward back to the accident. So you did jobs that you did, right? Yeah. And I'm sure you enjoyed them and you got paid for them and all the rest of it. But it doesn't strike me that ever seemed like your calling.
Correct.
Whereas what you are doing now, i.e. being an inspirational motivational speaker and going into schools and in the business world and and trying to educate people on how you can overcome adversity in life and how you can, what you call, reach your goals, how you can succeed and set targets and goals. it's inspirational stuff, but it's like you found your calling.
Yeah.
So do you believe that? I mean, I'm not saying that if you could go back, you would have that accident again, but everything for a reason, right? Is part of you sort of embrace that?
Yeah, I think so. It's quite a common question I get asked is, if I could go back in time, would I change the accident so it never happened? It's like a fork in my life. The accident happened. What if accident hadn't have happened? What would I have done? And the answer is I don't know what I would have done. Would I change what happened? My answer at the moment is yes, which might sound bizarre, but let me explain. On that day, I nearly died. On that day, I went through so much pain. My family, my friends went through so much turmoil and pain and sorrow. And it's also rehabilitation, which took me 3 years. That was just hell. It was literally hell on earth. No sleep, no pain, subjecting pain on myself through physio. And even now, today, I'm very happy. Let me just clarify that. But I get pain every single day. I struggle to get a pair of trousers on. I nearly fall over every day. But when I walk, when I stand, when I run, I get pain. And I don't like that. And I don't know what's coming up in the next 5-10 years. I could get back in a wheelchair. Things might get worse. I don't think about that because I'm very positive.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So the thing is, would I turn back time and change it? The answer is yes. However, you can't turn back time. It can't be done. So it's a case of things happen in life and it's how you deal with it. This is what I'm doing. So I'm dealing with it. And massive adversity happened in my life. And I was able to take responsibility, take ownership of that and say, right, let's crack on. What do I need to do to get out of this? And I set my goals and I set my goals high and I wanted to get back to normal. That was my goal. Get back to normal, get out of this hospital, get this cage off my leg, get walking again, get running again. After 3 years or more, I realized that I couldn't reach that goal that I'd set myself. There is no such thing as normal. I suddenly realized that I was very different to what I was before the accident. And that was a bit of a shell shock. But also it's a massive message that I share with lots of people now, is that there is no such thing as normal. You have to think about what you can do rather than what you can't do. And that's the mindset that I had to get into. And as soon as I got into that mindset and accepted that, I thought, right, let's just go through that again. What can I do? What can I do? Let's do that. I can swim, I can bike. Well, let's do that. What else can I do? And I was always asking myself, I
love it because you probably remember, Steve, from my talk at T2 Talks before yours, I talk a lot to our customers and to people about challenge and threat state. And it's a similar thing to what you're saying.
Yeah.
The challenge state is focus on what you control and what you can achieve rather than the consequence of what may happen, which is a threat state. And, everything you was talking around there is that you are utterly in a challenge state. Now, I can imagine in the early weeks and months after your accident, you weren't always there.
No.
You will have had your moments where you are completely focused on the consequence of what this means for me going forward, right? Or what I can't do going forward. But somehow you've switched yourself into that challenge state and look at it, it's working wonderfully well. You mentioned something there that I want to pick up on. What's normal, right? I mean, I've got, as people know, I've got Sjogren's syndrome, which is an autoimmune condition where my body attacks healthy tissues in my body. My immune system fires up and thinks there's foreign invaders and it attacks healthy tissues. And I get an array of problems and symptoms as a result of that. And I spent some time thinking, well, I just want to feel normal again. I remember saying that. I said to my wife, I just want to feel normal. And a year or so on, a few years on, I've sort of, my normal is now different. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I resonated with what you said then, because my previous normal is no longer relevant to me.
Yep.
So what's my normal now, or what's my state where I can remain in a challenge state and operate? And I think that's really important.
It is.
Otherwise you become consumed by the what if, or why can't I just go back? Why can't I just feel? Why can't I run a marathon? Why, whatever it might be. So you've got to adapt is what you're saying.
You have. And you use the exact same term that I use, my normal, as in that's me. You got to think about yourself, maybe in a selfish way. I don't know. But whatever you do, stop comparing yourself to other people, to your friends, to your family, to your peers, to your colleagues, to celebrities. There's loads of people out there that are constantly comparing themselves to other people. Now, that might be quite difficult coming from me, who's been an elite athlete, because I'm comparing myself to the other athletes. But am I really? I think the message that I learned throughout my journey was very much to be the best that I could be. Now, once I was the best that I could be, the results are the results. And it's the same with everything that you do. If you go for a job interview, if you're setting up your business, you're doing something in that, as long as you're the best that you can be, and I mean the absolute best, you've got no regrets, the result is the result. You've got to go with that.
I love that, Steve.
Yeah.
You're sending shivers down my spine already. We're only 15 minutes in. So, okay, I love that. So fast track to post-accident, you did rehabilitate, and, we won't go on too much about it because I know you deliver it fantastically well in your talks. But you're now a few years on. You are a very, very successful speaker. I think you was Yorkshire's #1 speaker. Was it last year?
2017, 2018.
Yeah, which is an amazing achievement. Some great speakers on the circuit in our region, as you know, Steve.
Absolutely.
You are now just about to launch your first book and become an author.
Yeah.
I had the privilege of pre-scanning it and reading it. I loved it, and I think I would recommend, and we'll do it at the end of this podcast, but I'd recommend anybody to keep a lookout for that and order, which basically takes them. What's the book called, Steve?
It's called Don't Lean on Your Excuses.
Which is one of your strap lines in your talks, isn't it? It's easy to lean on the excuses as to why you can't do things.
Absolutely. There's so many excuses out there. There's oodles of them. You've got to make sure you don't get them mixed up with fact. If it's fact, then fair enough, you can't do something. But if it's an excuse, it's an excuse, and don't lean on it. Turn that excuse into a challenge, and then crack on with it. It's like a barrier. It's like a barrier or something that's stopping you. You've got to smash through that barrier. And if you can see it as an excuse, turn it into a challenge, bash through it, away you go.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to come on to something else. I always ask speakers about this because having a fellow speaker on the podcast, I love it because we are a little bit of an enigma where I'm sure your friends say this, Steve, to you, where my friends down the pub will say, you're crazy. How do you get up at these conferences in front of hundreds of people and do what you do? Because the #1 global fear, Steve, is public speaking.
It is. Yeah.
Right. And it's because of that fight or flight, that survival mechanism in us that says, what if people judge you? What if you don't go down very well? What if you don't get a great reception? What if? So, but for speakers like us, we're a bit weird in the way that we actually harness that and channel it into adrenaline because we get total fulfillment from that buzz of doing it. And not many people out there can relate to that, Steve. Do you know what I mean? Not many people can relate to it. So, but one of the things for me you have to be as a speaker is you have to know your subject inside out.
Yep. And
you have to be incredibly passionate about what you're speaking about. Yeah. Without those two ingredients, the knowledge and the passion, you could even without the passion, right? You could have the best subject matter in the world, but you're not going to engage.
Yep.
As a speaker and the thousands of gigs you've done, what do you have a secret? Do you have a technique, or are you just you? and it's just happening whether you know it or not.
Oh, goodness. As a speaker, so I think a lot of people have this fear of speaking. Usually something's happened in their childhood. Sounds like I'm a counselor now, but something at school where they might have stood up, maybe in their teenage years, and somebody laughed or somebody joked, and they remember that, and that's a fear. I can't remember any such thing with that. I can remember being best man 3 times, and that was hard. And I remember being so nervous because when you're best man, you are the funny guy. You are, I can't wait for the best man speech. You are going to be amazing, Steve. And you're like, really? Okay. So I did that 3 times, and each time it went really well. So I think that has given me the confidence. Going through my health and safety, which we talked about, it's not the best subject in the world. I remember doing a health and safety training session just before I started. I said, any questions before we start? And one of the questions quite a common question was, when does it finish? Just when
thanks. Can I get out of here?
Yeah,
absolutely.
But I did also get some compliments saying that is the best health and safety training I've ever had because I made it something different. I used passion, which is what you talked about. Then you just talked about knowing the subject. All I do is I talk about me. Yeah. I can't go wrong, surely. So I love what I've done. I've got a very inspiring story. I talk about it with passion, and then I enhance that. I always think about what more I can do, what more I can do. I watch other speakers. I watch comedians on the stage, Michael McIntyre. People compare me with Michael McIntyre. People compare me with Chris Akabuski. People compare me with other speakers, which is so nice. But I am myself. I'm very authentic.
You are. And you know what? I'm smiling here because I do the same thing. I don't watch programs like other people watch them. I watch programs to see how actors and how comedians and how performers use their body language on stage, and I'm not even listening to the content, right? Because I'm observing people, and I take a lot of things away from that. One of the things I was really impressed with that T2 talk, Steve, from you was your use of props.
Right.
One of the spine chilling moments, and I'm not going to overspoil it, but you use things I mean, you won't mind me saying, you use the bone, the stick to snap the stick in the auditorium, which signifies when you broke your leg.
Yeah. And
that spine-chilling moment of hearing the stick snap, and then the severity hitting home of what happened to you. Yeah, it's just I was going to say it's a wonderful way to think. It's not. It's just a genius way to captivate an audience in the moment. On a really salient point. Yeah, and I thought you did that really well. Thank you. Throughout it. So I think yes. For anybody out there who's listening to this, if you're a manager in a business, and I want to link it into something else you said, if you're a team leader who has to stand up in front of a group and speak every Friday morning in the operational roundup, if you're the health and safety guy who goes on site and you have to address a group of, just because your subject matter isn't necessarily an overly exciting one, doesn't mean that you can't deliver it with passion and deliver it well. Because I have people saying to me all the time, but when you're speaking about this, how do you capture people's attention? But it can be done, Steve. It can be done.
Just tell a story. It's all about storytelling. And if you tell a story, people love stories. My goodness me. We did it as cavemen, cave women. We did it for 250 million years. We used to go out on the hunt, come back, sit around a fire, tell us about the hunt, tell us the story. So we love that. Nowadays, people sit around a television and they listen to stories. It's not the same thing. If you get somebody that's standing there telling a story, people will lean forward. They're engaged. They want to know more. Now, if you tell that story in the right way, and this is what I do as a speaker coach, is I get the story out of people by getting them to be emotional about it, getting the highs, the lows, and also the comedy factor as well. But the most important thing is that you don't speak from a script. You don't speak from your memories, but you speak from the heart.
Absolutely.
When you speak from the heart, there's a difference. There's just an absolute difference, and people will engage with you more, and they will be on your journey. And like you said, Martin, you've got to know the subject. For me, it's easy. It's all about me. But when I was doing health and safety, I knew the subject. And if I didn't know what I was talking about, I would say, I do not know about that. I will come back to that later. I would not dig myself a hole. That's the worst thing ever.
Yeah, a bit of humility goes a long way for a speaker. And I think, you hit on a great point. If you know your subject matter inside out, then you don't have to be scripted because it's there. Yeah. Right? It's there, and you can go anywhere you want with it and stay correct and stay inspiring and stay motivational. I never speak from a script. In fact, I sometimes get invited for these speaking gigs or get booked, and they ask me to send me their slides, and I say, well, look, I've got a few visual ones, but I'm generally not knowing how it's going to go until the day, right? It could go anywhere, but I like that, and you like that. So, but if people are nervous, having prompts is better than a script. And what I mean by that, Steve, is someone needs to keep themselves on track because they're nervous. Have prompt cards, which just says, I'm talking about this. Yeah. And then you can put your arms down, you can speak from the heart, and then maybe you can flick the card to the back and just your next prompt is there. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about next. And prompts are better than scripts, if anything.
Yeah. Prompt cards is a classic one. Or if you're going to use slides, then use the slide. The slide can be the next prompt, the next part of the journey.
Absolutely.
But whatever. The thing is, you've got to make sure that it doesn't make you nervous. So some people say, I'd like to use slides, but what if it goes wrong? What if I don't know how to use it? What if the tech doesn't work? Okay, if you're getting too nervous about it, scrap it. Yeah. Don't make yourself nervous. Don't make it too complicated for yourself. Today, I did not play a video at the end because I was just not too sure about the timing, wasn't too sure about the tech. I thought, scrap it. I'm not going to make myself nervous. The video can be next time I go there. If anybody says, that was a great talk, amazing, I will say, will you wait till part 2?
And you know what, Steve, to your point, before I move on to my final question, to your point, right? Nobody knows that you had a video at the end of that deck. No. There's only you who knows it's not being played. And this is what I say to people. Even if I go wrong, even if I watch something back and I thought, I said that wrong there, nobody else knows it's wrong because the people don't know what you're going to say, right? So you're in control is what I'm saying. Yep. People don't know Steve Judge didn't play a video today, right? Because they wasn't expecting it beforehand. Exactly. So loosen up with that and it'll give you the confidence that there's only you who knows if you've gone wrong. Yeah. Right? If at all. Okay, so one of the last things I want to ask you about, Steve, is we are doing a lot of work at the minute on well-being in the workplace and mental health and stress. Okay. I mentioned it in my talk around some of the inputs in the brain per day. We have at the moment the generations coming through, 24-hour sensationalist media, access to social media and world events. We could potentially be raising the most anxious generation the world's ever seen. There's more and more cases of mental health now, etc. I have a firm opinion on this, and I want to try and help and make a difference. And I talk about we've got to take some level of accountability and control as well.
Yeah.
Through that mindset and that thinking. But what's your view on this? I mean, you're obviously a resilient person. And that's not to say that when it happened, you didn't struggle or wobble for a period of time, like the best of us.
Absolutely.
But what do you think on the subject matter of mental health and managing stress and trying to come out of those moments if we're struggling?
I think, let me just tell the story of when I was going, it's probably a year, it was a year after my initial accident. Things weren't going well. I couldn't get my right leg straight, which is very important, else you walk with a limp for the rest of your life, bone doesn't grow correctly, etc. It was massive. I did so much physio, none of it was working. I was feeling demoralized. My only solution was to have another double cage put on my leg, which meant just so much trauma. I went through hell on earth for about 7 weeks. And around that time, because it was a year anniversary, I couldn't help but think where I was the year before. And on top of that, because it was a year after the accident, I got a letter through from my employers saying, I'm really sorry, it's been a year, we're going to have to let you go. I couldn't have got much lower. I was reading my diary a couple of months ago, and it said, I felt that I had no purpose.
Yep.
I think when you get to that point, you can't get much lower. And, to cut to the chase, I burst into tears. It was that kind of crying that I couldn't stop. Kind of crying that when I stopped, it just built up inside. It came out over and over again, day after day after day. And I did nothing. I did nothing all day for 4 days. Now, on the 5th day, I remember coming across all my physio equipment. I hadn't touched it. It was just collecting dust. I saw the physio charts that I hadn't filled in. All the hard work that I'd done was just being undone. I hated that. And I remember catching myself in the mirror, and I was unshaved and unwashed, and I hated myself. And it was that moment where I just thought, I hate being the person that I've become. I don't want to be. At that point, it wasn't about the goals. It wasn't about walking again or anything about getting the cage off. I just did not want to be where I was at that moment in time. And from that moment, I stopped crying and I picked myself up and I started doing the physio again and started moving forward. I realized that it was only me that could do something about it. Now, how that relates to the question about mental health is when adversity hits, and I'm talking about present day now, and it might be something small, like I've lost my damn car keys again, or my phone, or my wallet, or something else even bigger than that. I think the most important thing, and something you can't help, is to sulk. I think I think it's really good to sulk. Admit to yourself that you are sulking. I'm sulking. I'm really upset, really angry. I'm sulking. The thing is you've got to decide how long you're going to sulk for. Be open to yourself. Is it an hour? Is it a day? A couple of days? I mean, us men, we can sulk for days if you let us. But you've got to talk to yourself about how long am I going to let this go on for? Because at some point, you're going to stop. So decide when. Is it going to be sooner or later? And once you decide that you're going to stop, what are you going to do about it? Take action. From a health and safety point of view, what am I going to put in place to make sure that this never, ever, ever happens again? You've got to put something in place. You've got to take action.
Love that. Because I always, and it'll sort of come up to the wrap-up point, Steve, with a few minutes we've got left, I always say I fully, wholeheartedly believe in that. And I think, when we don't take action, when there's inaction, it leads to procrastination, worry, and then threat state, focusing on consequence. But when we decide that we're going to be accountable for getting ourselves out of this, and we start making bloody decisions, there is nothing more powerful than a decided mind.
Yeah.
And that, and for the some people out there where there is a bigger issue, or you feel overwhelmed, or it's not just a case of a few decisions, but that's the only thing you can do.
Yeah.
It's the only thing you can focus on, no matter how big. I need to start making some decisions, right? And I need to start having a decided mind. And that's what we need to do. That's what we need to educate our kids on, our workers on, our managers, whatever it might be. So, Steve Judge, with 60 seconds left, any final thoughts from you for any listeners out there on anything around just getting ahead, being productive?
On the mental health side, I have a big thing at the moment I want to exaggerate more, is about getting to the start line. As an elite athlete, some of my friends were injured. They couldn't get to the start line, and I learned from them. I had to do injury prevention. I had to look after myself, my wellness, do yoga, Tai Chi. It wasn't about being faster, stronger, or anything like that. It's about getting to that start line, looking after yourself, listening to your body, and taking note of it. So that's something I just want everybody to take away from this. It's so important to look after your health and go forward with that.
Love it, Steve. Steve Judge, I could talk to you all day. You inspire me, mate. And thank you for coming on the show.
No problem. Thank you, Martin.
And don't forget to check Steve's book out. When is it out, Steve? Quickly.
Let's say 1st of July.
1st of July. Yep. Steve's book, which is called?
It's called Don't Lean on Your Excuses. Website, www.steve-judge.co.uk. More details there.
Awesome. Or you can contact us and we'll get it for you. Steve Judge, thank you very much.
Thank you.